Good morning. Is it on? It's on? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Society of Northampton and Florence. I'm Jenny Furinger, and I'm your worship associate this morning. During the summer, the ceiling of the Great Hall at USNF is undergoing restoration. Actually, it's finished, yay. And we're grateful to be meeting here at Bombyx through August. Please see the USNF website for more details. If you are new or returning after a time away, we're glad to see you. To receive information about all that we do and to get on our mailing list, we direct you to our website where you can fill out an online welcome card. The greeters at the back of the sanctuary also have a QR code that you can scan to access the welcome card. And there is a link to an online version in the chat. Visitors should look for anyone with a pink name tag to answer any questions they may have. We are very happy to have our settled minister, Reverend Melissa Carville-Ziemer, here with us today. She moved into her office on Tuesday and has begun her ministry with us. Reverend Melissa will be joining us here on Sundays and will be preaching on August 30th. We strive to be a congregation that welcomes people of all ages, races, religious beliefs, backgrounds, sexual orientations, gender identities, and abilities. We belong to the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregations, and we are guided and inspired by its values and principles. Our values and principles move us to remember that those of us in the Connecticut River Valley live on the unceded homeland of the Pecumtuck, Nonotuck, and Western Nipmuc peoples. We acknowledge our responsibility to confront the legacies of dispossession and systemic racism that are part of our collective history, and we affirm and celebrate the many legacies that inspire us. I am very pleased to welcome our guest service leader this morning. Laura Brown Lavoie is a poet, farmer, and recent graduate of Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where she received a Master of Divinity and wrote her master's thesis about plants, in particular pomegranates, as divine messengers. During her time in New York, Laura served as the program coordinator for the Mindfulness Meditation Buddhism program at All Souls NYC, a UU congregation in Manhattan. Laura was raised Unitarian Universalist by her mom, Liz, a congregant here at USNF. She recently returned from 2 weeks of backpacking in the wildernesses of Vermont, the fragrant ecosystem from which today's sermon arose. We have drawing materials and other activities at the Soul Play table at the entrance to the sanctuary. Also in the back, we have hearing assistive devices and large print orders of meeting. Restrooms are gender neutral and down the hall. Please see announcements in the order of meeting. And please join us for social hour in the Rainbow Room after the service, also down the hall. We're here to celebrate, to reflect, and to support one another. It is good to be together. And now, let's enjoy the prelude.
In the name of the source of all, with hearts of gratitude, we greet each other today. We greet the forest that once grew here, the grasses and waters of this place. We greet the ancestors and the many beings of this land where we're so blessed to be sitting together, and the well and loving ones who come before us and made our lives possible. May we step together in the streams of wisdom that meet in this room that each of us carry here, from our teachers, from our friends, and be nourished by this gathering as we sit together right at the edge of what is so much bigger than ourselves. May this meeting open our hearts, and may our gathering bring benefit to this place. And now together we'll light the chalice. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. And we'll say in unison the words of the great Zen teacher Thich Nhat Hanh. We'll say this chalice light in unison, and I invite you to feel it in your body. I have arrived. I am home. In the here, in the now. I am solid. I am free. In the ultimate I dwell. I have arrived. I am here. In the here, in the now. I am solid. I am free. In the ultimate I dwell. And if you're up for it, we'll stay standing for the first hymn of the morning, number 38, Morning Has Broken.
And now it's time to greet one another. Those of you in the Great Hall, if you're on Zoom, you were invited to turn on your videos, wave, and say hello in the chat. It's helpful to switch to gallery view.
Hey, come on, hi. Wow. But it's come on, come on. All right, you should be able to drag it from right over here. No? Okay. Because it looks like you can get to the top of it there, but I guess no. Oh, that wasn't the top. Okay. All right. Okay, Brent, close the door. There you go. Okay, too small to see from the back. Sorry.
It has been good to see everyone. If you are on Zoom, please remember to turn off your video.
So this morning's meditation is to help us connect with wildness. We'll use memory and imagination to connect with all of our embodied knowledge of the teachings that come from wildness. And it has two parts, connecting with beauty and connecting with fear. So to start, let's just arrive again where we're sitting, perceiving the light and colors of this space. And after that buzzy moment of greeting each other, let yourself just land with yourself in the chair. If you're comfortable and you want to, you can soften your eyes or close them. And notice the temperature of the air on your skin here. And the sensations of your body in your hands and feet or other places. The living soil that's beneath us, the living air around us, the plants and animals that live here and that make up this building, and this gigantic organism of our planet that we're breathing with. And now, if you're ready, remember a place outdoors that you find quite beautiful. Maybe it's somewhere you go often, or it could be somewhere you've only been once. Bring it forward vividly. Notice something new about it. And notice how it feels in your body to remember that place. Try to find a word for the feeling in your body or your emotions. Maybe it's joyful there, or peaceful, or ecstatic. Choose one word and make that the medicine you carry from that place. And then see what it feels like to offer that medicine, that word, that feeling from your heart out to everyone else here. Radiating the beauty of the place you know. And receiving a little bit the beauty that's coming from other people. And then with a breath, gently let that memory dissolve. And this time, remember a moment of medium fear in the outdoors. Nothing too terrifying, but a time when you came into contact with the strength and power. Maybe you've been in a big storm, or you've swam in strong waters, or you've gone out when it's super hot or cold. Just touch into that edge of power that you've encountered. And try to remember a little bit what it felt like to be a human in that. See if you can remember what resources in yourself you touched. And fear is a resource. It's okay to be scared. It's smart sometimes. Maybe you also felt your resolve. Maybe even a little bit of enjoyment of the danger. And finally, see if you can remember what it felt like to get out of it. To get home, or the moment after the storm is done. That feeling of having encountered something much bigger, much stronger. And now you can let that memory dissolve too. And we'll just spend one moment in gratitude for the gift of a human body in this world with all of our senses, and for the encounters we've been given with wildness in our lives. May these places we love and everywhere on earth know peace, know harmony among the beings. May it be so.
Our generosity makes everything we do possible, and it helps us support organizations and movements in the greater community. Half of the proceeds of each week's offering support the Society's operating budget, and half are shared outside our walls. You may mail in a check, donate online, or put your contribution in one of the plates that the ushers will pass. The offering will now be given and gratefully received.
Laura and Jenny have consented to my saying a few words, about 4 minutes worth, on today's music. The French composer Mel Bonis wrote her sad lullaby, her Berceuse Triste, in 1929. A prolific composer, much of whose music has only come to light in the last 2 or 3 decades, she adopted the androgynous-sounding name Mel because of the contemporary prejudice against female composers. You may already be familiar with the musicals by composer and lyricist Stephen Sondheim, including A Little Night Music and Sweeney Todd. And Sundays in the Park with George. I recently came back from a trip to my childhood haunts in the Chicago area, and I was delighted to visit the Art Institute to see once more Georges Seurat's immense painting that inspired Sondheim to write his musical. I also became much more familiar with Sondheim's Into the Woods as a keyboard player for the Smith College production back in March, and I realized anew how Sondheim almost single-handedly transformed the Broadway musical from a lighthearted, sometimes frothy entertainment into something that could be rich, deep, complicated, and even disturbing. No One Is Alone comes near the end of Into the Woods and is sung by Cinderella. Here's a portion of its text. No one here to guide you, now you're on your own. Only me beside you, still you're not alone. No one is alone, sometimes people leave you halfway through the wood. Others may deceive you, you decide what's good. Someone is on your side, someone else is not. While you're seeing your side, maybe you forgot, they are not alone. No one is alone. And I'll play that music for the offertory in just a moment, but first, the remaining piano music today has to do with Robert and Clara Schumann and Johannes Brahms. The couple married in 1840, and she bore 8 children, 4 of whom died at an early age. Clara was a child prodigy as a pianist and toured widely when she was able to. She also had studied composition. The couple opened their home to a talented young visitor who was 20 years old, also a pianist and composer, and that was Johannes Brahms. He stayed with them for a time, and one of his early works was a set of variations on a theme by Robert. Brahms probably wasn't aware that Clara had also written a set of variations on that same tune the year before, in 1853. Her husband Robert died a broken man beset by mental illness and physical ill health. At the age of 46, Clara took care of the family and maintained a long career through Europe as a concert artist and teacher. Which brings us to today's prelude. I've been trying to reduce my many boxes of paper, concert programs, orders of meeting, etc. Of all things, I came upon an order of meeting from many years ago with that very same emblem at top as you see today, except that it was called the Unitarian Church of Northampton and Florence, and John Firmakis was the minister. I was in my second year at a local college, and at that time, the USNF was a tiny assemblage of maybe 30 or 40 attendees on a Sunday. In those days, an Amherst College student was sometimes invited to be a guest musician. I have no idea whether Smith students also took part, and I dearly hope they did. I was the guest musician on one such occasion and played the Brahms Intermezzo you heard this morning. The date was June 13th, 1971. I hope my performance today was a little more nuanced and secure than the version I played 55 years ago.
Today's reading is a poem inspired by a marble statue from 1875, soon after emancipation, carved by the sculptor Edmonia Lewis, a Black and Indigenous USA artist who spent most of her career in Rome, where her work was highly acclaimed. Both the sculptor and this poet are at work with the biblical story of the enslaved woman Hagar, who bore Abraham's first son and was abandoned by him in the wilderness. Hagar in the Wilderness by Tyehimba Jess. My God is the living God, God of the impertinent exile, an outcast who carved me into an outcast carved by sheer and stony will to wander the desert in search of deliverance, the way a mother hunts for her wayward child. God of each eye fixed to heaven, God of the fallen water jug, of all the hope a vessel holds before spilling to barren sand. God of flesh hewn from earth and hammered beneath a will immaculate with the power to bear life from the lifeless like a well in the wasteland. I'm made in the image of a God that knows flight but stays me rock still to tell a story ancient as slavery, old as the first time hands clasped together for mercy and parted to find only their own salty blessing of sweat. I have been touched by my God in my creation. I've known her caress of anointing callous across my face. I know the lyric of her pulse across these lips, and yes, I've kissed the fingertips of my dark and mortal God. She has shown me the truth behind each chiseled blow that's carved me into this life, the weight any woman might bear to stretch her mouth toward her one true God, her own beaten marble song.
Oh, thank you for that music, Greg. One of my favorite parts about leading a service is telling the musicians my theme and then seeing what they pick out. It's really fun. My name is Laura Lamb Brown Lavoie, and it's such a joy to be a visitor here on this beautiful land tucked along that long river, Quinnipiac. I greet the ancestors and many beings of this place. May our gathering be noticed as one of loving hearts. I give thanks for the hands who built this building and who keep it up and open it and welcome us today. Thanks, Ginny, for planning with me, and Reverend Cherry for inviting me to the pulpit on what I'm sure was a totally objective recommendation from my mom. Thanks for having me, Mom, original outdoors woman in my life. Thanks to my friends who showed up. No one I'd rather preach at. And for all of you, thank you for welcoming me, and may my words this morning meet a need in you. And may whatever I miss show you what your spirit already knows. As Ginny mentioned, today's sermon started as footsteps during a 13-day solo hike that I made last month along 140 miles on the Long Trail in Vermont. The tagline of the Long Trail is "A footpath in the wilderness." And at one trailhead, I read on an informational sign. I often took those signs as an opportunity for some snacks. explaining that I was entering a so-called wilderness area, which is a designation I learned that has been applied to certain large tracts of federal land ever since 1974, when President Johnson signed the Wilderness Act. A wilderness, according to the text of the law, quote, in contrast with those areas where man and his own works dominate the landscape, is hereby recognized as an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man, where man himself is a visitor who does not remain, unquote. There's a songbird with glass bells for a throat who knows about day before anyone else in the wilderness. Prayer is better than sleep, she sings from somewhere just beyond my dream. And there in my tent, I know she's right. So with sore knees, I rise to greet the dawn. There's a raucous cascade of clear water with a hummingbird hovering, where I stop in the heat to wash my feet. Each sip turns my throat to glass bells. There are diamonds of mist strung along the threads of a perfectly intact spiderweb. A stone canyon with a torrent that would end me instantly and surrender none of my bones. There are these 1,000 greens who tease the wind against a fleecy gray evening sky, and a loon who zooms down to unzip in ripples the pond before singing me to sleep, a cry, his cry, every sorrow in one sound. Indeed, I found the wilderness untrammeled. I was a visitor. I did not remain. What is it with white people and hiking? My friend asks laughingly when I get back. She's an ex-Marine, an athlete. She lives in a war zone. She is brown. She has no desire for recreational hiking. Ever since I've pondered the Wilderness Act as 3 acts, actually. An individual act, that is going alone to a place less human, more vast. A historical act, that is a USA president saying words like primeval and untrammeled, about forests in mostly unceded territories which his predecessors claimed by murder and tamed by slavery. This historical dimension includes biblical and present-day ways that our societies put some of us out to die or survive despite wilderness conditions. And finally, a divine act. What we meet at the edge of our own small power. A presence that communicates to us via beauty and fear, that induces awe and a knowledge that we belong to something much bigger than ourselves, which, once felt, calls us into what I shall wildly call covenant, and clothes us in what I will provisionally call grace. What we do with these encounters is my question this morning. So the Individual Wilderness Act says, I go. And it recurs in many of our stories of exemplary people. It's said that the Shakyamuni Buddha's journey, that he journeyed into the forest to undergo austerities during his ascetic period, and also sat under a tree with earth as his witness before attaining enlightenment. His example reappears in many past and present Buddhist lineages, including the story of the first Chan patriarch, Bodhidharma, who, after his enlightenment, is said to have sat in a cave facing a wall for 9 years straight. The wilderness is a ubiquitous setting in the stories of the Abrahamic traditions. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, before receiving revelations, is said to have had a habit of hiking up Jabal al-Nur, the mountain of light, a peak in the desert outside of Mecca. And he also went to a cave for extended periods of meditation and prayer. It's said that it was in that cave that the angel Jibreel met him, which began years of revelation, now collected as the Quran. Moses' many years with his people in the wilderness included several divine encounters solo. In all the canonical Gospels, Jesus is said to have spent time in the wilderness, in retreat, in struggle and temptation, and as part of his ministry. Solo journeys into the wilderness are also woven into the fabric of many indigenous cultures as rites of passage for people entering adulthood, or as periodic opportunities to seek vision and guidance in one's life. For many of us, the individual wilderness act is consciously or unconsciously an emulation of these exemplary journeys. And broadening it from just walking into the forest, people seek out all kinds of experiences of purposeful solitude, isolation, and great effort, even if they include physical discomfort along with beauty, fear, and the release from fear. Experiences where we touch not only our inner source of strength and resilience, where we do fervently the practices we've been taught, and also experience support that meets us from the wider ecosystem and from the great unseen. Another biblical wilderness walker is Hagar, who first chose the wilderness and a second time was abandoned there. In her 1995 book of womanist theology, Sisters in the Wilderness, Dolores Williams identifies the story of this enslaved woman who bore Abraham's first child, Ishmael, as a site rich for appropriation by a liberation theology centered around the religious experience of Black Christian women in the USA. Dr. Williams' work was an elaboration and a corrective to both Black liberation theologies that centered the male experience and feminist theologies that excluded Black women. In the book of Genesis, the story of Hagar contains two encounters between the desperate mother and a being referred to as an angel of God, both in the wilderness. In the first, she has run away. As a response to Sarah's perceived barrenness, Hagar was compelled to conceive a child by Abraham. But tension between the pregnant Hagar and Sarah leads Sarah to mistreat Hagar, and Hagar flees to the wilderness. There she is instructed by an angel of God to return to the house of Abraham. The angel promises that her son Ishmael will be the ancestor of many tribes. Hagar's second journey into the wilderness is ordered by Sarah, who, having given birth to Isaac, demands Hagar and Ishmael be banished so they don't threaten her own son's inheritance. Abraham is instructed by God to obey Sarah's wishes and abandons Hagar and Ishmael in the wilderness, where they nearly die of thirst before being once again met by an angel who shows them a well and reassures them that they will survive and have many descendants. Hagar is called Hajar in the Islamic tradition, and the story is similarly told with the added detail that in her distress, Hajar ran back and forth 7 times between the hills of Safa and Marwa, searching for help, before the angel reveals the spring at a place called Zemzem. The details of her distress and her divine encounter are memorialized to this day by every pilgrim to Mecca, when, as part of their 3-day ritual, Hajis, pilgrims, walk 7 times between those 2 hills and then drink from the water at Zemzem. In the act of pilgrimage, a person decides to leave their ordinary life behind and walk in the footsteps of the ones who know God. When I consider Hagar's 2 wilderness episodes, I realize that one of the reasons I sometimes choose the difficulty of the wilderness, that edge of my own capacity, is to prepare myself for the times when I might just find myself there. For often in a human life, the wilderness just arrives around us. Grief is a wilderness. to suddenly walk the world without someone you love. Serious illness is a wilderness. Some of us walk out the door into the wilderness of racist aggression or gender hostility. The fragile plan we had for staying housed and fed falls through. There's a fire or a flood or war comes to where we are, and we become viscerally aware of our own smallness, our total vulnerability and reliance on resources and webs of care so much bigger than ourselves. Ideally, in those moments, we are able to remember the stories of our forebears who survived, and the times in our own lives when we've had courage and faith and resilience. Dolores Williams relies on the story of Hagar to elaborate the role of the wilderness as a literal and figurative place in African American women's religious experience during and after slavery, an experience she calls finding a way out of no way. Dr. Williams shares lyrics of songs from slavery that depict the wilderness as the place to find Jesus. She writes, "Getting religion and getting one's consciousness thoroughly saturated with God involved moving oneself bodily into a private space where the God-human encounter could happen undisturbed by competing forces in the environment. Going into the wilderness assured slaves that they would meet Jesus if they persevered." She elaborates on the wilderness as a friend, as a source of shelter and food on the journey of escape. She also describes a turn after emancipation as African Americans faced the wide, wide world, a world hostile in so many ways to Black survival and quality of life. The wilderness experience remained a motif in the Black church, a place for finding Jesus and God, but a physical location for wilderness was no longer necessary. Instead, she writes, the wilderness experience was sought by isolating oneself, more especially one's mind, from competing forces and withdrawing in fervent prayer, meditation, and fasting. The spiritual resource of the wilderness is an inheritance of the Black church, which has evolved as practices that induce the edge state of solitude in the wild, regardless of where a person chooses to fast and pray. Which brings me back to my friend's question about white people and hiking. Williams contrasts the Black religious experience of wilderness with a tension in Euro-American attitudes between the so-called pioneer mindset, in which fear of the real dangers that settlers felt and encountered trying to survive in the North American wilderness led to an ethic of conquering it. But that was alongside a romantic trend in the nation's history, early in the nation's history, which identified this primeval landscape of America as an asset that set this country apart from the ordered and deforested old world. When I read the 1964 Wilderness Act, I read both the pioneer and romantic notions of our national identity via land. The text romantically preserves wilderness via the tight control of federal law. And this ambivalence is out on the trail too, among the mostly white people, mostly men, who I met hiking. All of us are, to some degree, romantics, eager to leave behind man and his works. But as my friend's question implied, there is an uneasy amnesia of the pioneering that made our walk possible. It is, after all, a trail that was cut through an already inhabited forest, and the white rectangle blazes from over a century ago mark that conquering. So how do we deal with the many valences of wilderness that we inherit? Both the streams of wisdom, inspiration, and the streams of disease and harm. We don't get to choose the histories that we're born to, but we do get to choose how we walk and whose footsteps we follow. For me, it's helpful to summon the state of pilgrimage when I go into the forest or even when I walk around town. I know that the soil beneath me carries stories. I know that the trees and the buildings remember. I choose, first of all, mindful walking, as taught by Thich Nhat Hanh, a practice I first encountered as a teenager in a time of duress. Walking mindfully, I match my breath to my steps. This leads to a heightening of all my senses, a softening of my heart, an openness to the layers of history as they erupt into the truth of the present moment. For example, some of my French settlers to what is now Canada, in the centuries after they came, due to the insatiable European desire for furs, participated in the near extinction of the beaver. Sometimes when I'm hiking, I come upon that miracle of aquatic architecture, the beaver pond. Something in my blood requires me to slow down. I take out the offering pouch that I carry with flower petals in it. I kneel somewhere near where the beavers have been working. I introduce myself, my ancestors, the lands where they came from, what I know of what they did here. And I say some prayers for healing on this land. I ask to be shown my part in it. I listen. I watch the water, the arrival of feelings and thoughts, once even the splash of that wide, wonderful beaver tail. Way out in the water, beaver, I greet you, you and your long surviving. And I carry into the forest also the people in my blood who were forest people, who in their homelands had life ways that would never have allowed for the endangerment to extinction of any of their fellow beings. Just as the Hajis walk 7 times between Safa and Marwa, remembering the thirst of Hajar, we can walk in the footsteps of people we admire and turn recreation into remembrance. In Maryland and Delaware and all the way up to New York, there are trails commemorating the journeys of Harriet Tubman. When a person walks the Harriet Tubman Trail, it's more than exercise. It's an invitation to feel in the body her strength, her wilderness skills, her connection to the divine, her lifetime as a liberator. Of the transformation in his religious and racial understandings that occurred on his pilgrimage to Mecca, Malcolm X said, "Even I was astounded, but there was a precedent in my life for this. My whole life had been a chronology of changes." This is the difference between a pilgrim and a pioneer. A pioneer sets out to change the landscape, to conquer the forest, to bag a peak. A pilgrim sets out to be changed by it. It's useful to know your own physical strength. It's useful to have survival skills, especially these days, and endurance. It's useful to bring home a walking song and smile with the smile of someone who's waved at beavers. It's useful to remember that food is precious, garbage is heavy, and waste is a crime. Enduring the difficulties of the trail by choice, carrying everything I needed on my back, running out of water, sleeping on hard ground, I was often washed over with images of my siblings who at that very moment were also carrying everything they needed on their backs, also running out of water, and sleeping on hard ground under conditions of bombardment and famine, or the plain old hard times in every town I hiked into. Always that remembrance deepened my walk. I felt my grief for the world in the ache of my shoulders, and the fragility, the real fragility of the peace where I was walking. I opened myself to those moments, in those moments, to what I'll call the divine act, a presence beyond and including everything I can perceive. Maybe it was the voice of a songbird. Maybe it was the voice of an angel. Maybe it was a way out of no way. So the individual says, I go. And in response, sometimes the divine says, I am here. That I am here meets us in the wilderness in all kinds of ways. It comes in the form of friends who comfort you and feed you when you're freaking out. It comes in the form of strangers who pick you up on the side of the road and get you where you're going. It comes in the form of plants and animals. It comes in the form of a feeling in the heart. And it leaves you with a knowledge, a certainty of your total reliance. Yes, your strength, but also your total reliance on this web of life. And ideally, it also leaves you with a sense of responsibility, which is kind of where I landed as I pondered the Wilderness Act. It's like I got to go out there for 13 days. And what do I bring back? So some of what I bring back is stories. But there's all kinds of ways that we can cultivate wilderness practices together. We can support the initiation of young people and each other into these fervent heart practices, whether it's going outside together, practices of prayer, meditation, fasting, ancestral practices of connection to community and land. It's geeky, but we can just do it with each other and with young people especially. We can support movements for indigenous sovereignty and lifeways in relation to the wild places around us, and support reparations in the form of land and money to descendants of enslaved people here on this land. We can tend sanctuaries of any size where encounters with beauty and fear and awe are possible. Like, all you need is one flower that the hummingbirds like, and it's a wilderness. And you can include tending of other sanctuaries, like a congregation that gathers or a poetry slam. There's a saying that's sometimes attributed to the Holy Prophet when he was offered the entire valley of Mecca as gold. He says, I don't need gold. Just make me full one day and hungry the next. When I am hungry, I beseech and remember you. And when I am full, I sing your praise. This edge between hunger and satiation, between beauty and fear, is a valuable one, one we can seek, one we can nurture and return from with gifts and with gratitude. And I guess I'd say that's the goal of the Wilderness Act. So may you each carry forward whatever wisdoms you've gathered there at your edges and share them with each other, share them with me. May we walk the wilderness of this time with courage and with a sense of reliance and with the responsibility to be that bigness for one another. Blessed be. Many birds I met out there. We're going to sing the only hymn I chose for today's service. Number 15, The Lone Wild Bird. So we'll close our service where we began, with the meditation from Thich Nhat Hanh that can bring us anywhere into a state of presence and receptivity. I am arrived, I am home, in the here, in the now. I am solid, I am free. In the ultimate, I dwell.